They've been powering our on-the-go lives for decades and hailed as the key to freeing the world from fossil fuels. Lithium-ion batteries are central to the green energy revolution, but they aren't without drawbacks. Today on Eco India, we explore ways to make the most of their shelf life. Hello and welcome, I'm Sanuta Raghu. Now, lithium-ion batteries power everything from tools and toys to electric vehicles and energy storage systems. But when their useful life comes to an end, they can pose a hazard to our health or environment if not properly managed. Here in India, one company is working to ensure that these batteries don't end up as pollutants.
Jagam Abbas expertly gets down to dismantling another electric battery. He's been working in this recycling plant for the past 18 months. The former day laborer is proud of his job, and there will be plenty to keep him busy for years to come.
People used to commute using gasoline vehicles. They emit smoke and cause lots of pollution. That causes health issues. Electric vehicles don't cause any kind of pollution or emissions.
A growing number of people in India are now switching to electric vehicles. Experts estimate that this year, sales will almost triple the previous year's demand. Instead of gasoline or diesel, electric vehicles run on batteries, which at the moment are mainly lithium-ion based. It's an environmental conundrum because they usually only have a lifespan of 5 to 7 years. Moushumi Mohanty from the Center for Science and Environment in New Delhi explains the problem.
We produce about 50,000 tons of lithium-ion waste in the country. Very little of it actually gets recycled. It's only now with EVs coming into the picture and the government setting up these recycling rules, battery waste management rules.
This is just the beginning. The most serious issue is that the toxic substances in the discarded batteries can leach into the groundwater via landfill sites. At the same time, the lithium-ion batteries are full of valuable raw materials that India has historically had to import from all over the world. That's created a completely new industry. For about 3 years now, the Etero company has been recycling lithium-ion batteries, bringing their component parts back into the raw material cycle.
The cells goes into the shredder, they are shredded properly. Then the black mass, what we do is the black powder inside the battery is called as black mass. We separate that from the casing of the battery, and then that black mass refining process is a further process where using different hydrometallurgy and electrometallurgy techniques to extract metals like cobalt metal sheet.
Nickel, magnesium, copper, lithium carbonate and other compounds are also recouped from the old batteries. These raw materials can then be used in the production of new batteries, a solution that saves money and makes more environmental sense than extracting more minerals from mines around the world, where people often work under atrocious conditions.
We call our recycling process urban mining because we extract the same metals that come from the mine, but we actually don't physically dig up the earth. We are taking waste that is generated by consumers and industries.
Around the world, there are numerous companies like Etero recycling lithium-ion batteries. However, the volume of batteries currently being recycled is still very small, especially given the amount of waste expected in the future.
Battery recycling is something that the entire world is still trying to figure out. There needs to be a lot more, I think, investment into its R&D. That is one important thing. And the other thing also is that we still don't have enough volumes, no. We need huge, large volumes to be able to perfect a process, and even globally, I think we are in the beginning stages.
From 2035, India plans to limit sales of new vehicles to zero emissions models only. Experts believe that by the end of the current decade, more than half of all new vehicles will already be all electric. Battery recycling is an important factor in achieving the complete switch to e-mobility in India, and if possible, under conditions that are both financially and environmentally sound.
Electric vehicle sales in India have almost tripled, echoing a global surge. That's good news for efforts to cut emissions, but also paints the prospect of a multi-million ton heap of discarded batteries. A Bangalore-based startup has developed an energy storage system that runs on second-life lithium-ion batteries and is making a world of a difference to people in places where power is unreliable.
When the sun goes down in rural Uttar Pradesh, street life usually fades away together with the day's dying light. But these second-life batteries allow long stretches of road to be lit up after dark. One of these batteries is also in service in faraway Bengaluru. The innovation enables street vendors to peddle their snacks late into the night.
Light is the greatest gift. I can do my work so much better now, thanks to the light.
A 2-hour drive away, in Kenchannahalli, one of the batteries is delivering energy to electric sewing machines. This makes it possible for seamstresses at the Viveka Rural Livelihood Centre to earn more, as they are paid a piece rate per article of clothing they produce. And not having to manually operate the machines means less of a physical burden.
I'd always get pain in my legs at work. I couldn't work for long periods and I had to constantly stretch my legs. With these electric machines, I don't have that problem. I can work for as long as I want to.
We used to come to work at 9 a.m. Now we can come an hour later. Back then we'd managed to sew 2 or 3 dresses a day. With the electric machines we can do a lot more. We work as long as we want and manage to get everything done.
Pradeep Chatterjee and Darshan Virupaksha founded Noonam in Bengaluru. Their goal was to harness the last remaining energy from used batteries. And that meant experimenting in what was still a relatively unexplored field.
Usually they're used between 100 to 80 to 75%. That's where in the first life people are usually using it. And between that 75% and 50% threshold, there is still, in most cases, some usable energy which you can still use. But in the first life application, it doesn't get used, which is not very efficient, right? I mean, it's like you have 1 liter water bottle, you drink half a liter and you throw half a liter away.
The two men started out in 2017 with used laptop batteries. First, the battery is taken apart. Each individual cell is tested for its energy content. The functioning ones are assembled into a small portable battery, which is rented out to street vendors, for example, for around €2 a week. The second big project after the laptop batteries are used batteries from electric cars. They've come from a German car maker and are converted into powerful second-life batteries lasting for 5 to 10 years. The laptop batteries, which are also charged with solar energy, last only about 2 years. Noonam monitors them via a chip and an app.
Each battery is internet connected. As these batteries are internet connected, we get advanced notifications at their end of life and pick up these batteries for recycling, while we also provide a new one as a replacement.
At the end of their second life, the batteries end up in this recycling plant run by Sungil, India, 100 kilometers north of Bengaluru. The batteries are broken down into their various components. The metallic waste, mostly aluminium, is sold to metal dealers. The so-called black pulp containing the particularly valuable substances is sent to Sungil's main factory in South Korea for further processing.
We recover all the valuable metals like cobalt, nickel, lithium, manganese, copper, and again we send it to our contractor like Samsung to manufacture new battery.
Recycling centers like this are still pretty thin on the ground in India. But the number of electric cars is growing.
With electric mobility taking center stage in India, bringing resource efficiency into batteries becomes a major factor into our sustainable practices in mobility sector.
Here at the Indian Institute of Science in Bengaluru, Nagafani Etukuri tests a range of materials with the aim of increasing battery capacity. He's the head of the Institute's team for advanced energy storage research.
So I see repurposing as part and parcel of this ecosystem of electric vehicles and electrification in general. Repurposing batteries really cost me maybe about 10% of the cost of recycling a battery. The energy cost, the cost on the environment in terms of chemicals that will be used for recycling, and the cost on the environment in terms of waste that comes out of recycling batteries.
The big advantage of second life batteries is that they are environmentally friendlier than new ones. And they are also much cheaper, so more people can afford them.
If I can cut down the cost of storing electricity to a common man, it probably will bring every single person in the country to have the same level of basic amenities that otherwise don't exist in some of the remote areas. And bringing that equality is in itself a big social reform, I think.
The seamstresses in Kenchanhalli live in small villages nearby. In many cases, they can no longer feed themselves and their families from agriculture alone. They now have a regular income at the sewing workshop. The batteries mean that their work here can be done at any time of day, which also makes it easier to reconcile work and family life. But one battery is not really enough. The women are hoping for more, including for their homes.
With a battery like this, it would also be possible for my children to do their school homework, and we could use it to power household devices like washing machines. That would help us immensely.
Lailakshmi has far more ambitious plans. In the future, she'd like to open a small business with 4 sewing machines at home. Then she could take care of her children while she earns a living.
Now, batteries have powered the rise of renewable energy because they can store it, even when the sun isn't shining or the wind isn't blowing. But given the limitations of lithium-ion batteries, the search is on for alternatives. Our reporter had a look around.
Before we get into the shiny new stuff, we gotta talk about the lithium-ion battery. It's the fastest growing battery segment in the world. Scientists started developing the lithium-ion battery during the oil crisis of the 1970s. They hoped this could wean the West off fossil fuels. But nothing has changed, and it took a while until you could actually buy one. Engineers Stanley Whittingham, Akriya Yoshino, and John B. Goodenough helped develop the first commercially available lithium-ion batteries that came to market in 1991. That's them winning the Nobel Prize for that.
You work with nice people, and they do all the hard work, and you sit back and try to take as much credit as you can.
The lithium-ion battery is good at giving a lot of electricity in shorter bursts. So it's used for consumer electronics and now electric cars. And it's also pretty much the only battery we use for storing grid-scale renewable energy. But mining lithium is problematic. It involves pumping underground water deposits to the surface. This uses roughly 70,000 liters to make 1 ton of lithium. More than half the Earth's resources are between Argentina, Bolivia, and Chile. Mining it consumes 65% of the region's already scarce water supply. Lithium-ion batteries also typically use cobalt, which is expensive and mined mostly in the Democratic Republic of Congo. News reports have covered the notoriously exploitative business, which uses child miners and devastates local communities. Lithium batteries can also be flammable. If you can't bring them on a plane, you should definitely think twice about a giant one backing up your grid. And they lose capacity, so longevity isn't really their forte. So lithium-ion batteries work, but they can't be the only solution to store energy, especially on a grid scale. According to the IEA, we're going to need close to 10,000 gigawatt-hours of energy storage worldwide by 2040 to meet climate goals. That's 50 times the size of the current market. Today, it's actually another technology, pumped hydro storage, that comprises a whopping 96% of global storage power capacity.
And it basically relies on pretty simple gravitational principles.
This is Ramya Swaminathan. She's the head of a thermal storage company, which we'll get to later, but she has no problem with water.
You've got 2 reservoirs, or lakes, one high and one low. And when you have a lot of excess power, you use that excess power to pump the water uphill to the higher reservoir. When you want that power back, you let the water run downstream and turn a turbine generator. However, those projects are hard to build.
They take up massive amounts of space and need exactly the right geography, 2 lakes and a hill. A lot of them also work within conventional hydroelectric dams, which need lots of upfront capital and disrupt habitat. Storing renewable energy will need more flexibility than these reservoirs. One promising alternative that's making headway comes from something you can find right on your kitchen table: salt.
Sodium is much more abundant, and it's chemically similar to lithium. It's on the same group in the periodic table.
This is Rosa Palacin. She's a battery researcher at the Institute of Materials Science in Barcelona. She says sodium is the best alternative because it basically mimics lithium-ion battery technology. It has also got 1 valence electron, the number of electrons in the outermost layer. But sodium is 1,000 times more abundant, is 20 to 40% cheaper, and isn't sensitive to temperature changes, so no issues with blowing up. But it does have lower energy density, thus heavier batteries, which is why it hasn't commercialized sooner. If it's for the grid, though, this won't matter so much since everything is stationary, and for right now, time is of the essence.
Sodium ion is way higher in technology readiness level, so much closer to commercialization.
While they're already on the market, analysts expect them to be produced at scale in the next few years. Speaking of salt, what if we could store energy in the form of heat in really hot salt? Swaminathan's company Malta is doing this in the US.
We take electric energy, either directly from renewable generation like wind or solar, or just from the grid, and we convert that into thermal energy.
Turns out that molten salt is a great preserver of heat. It looks kind of like water and has roughly the same viscosity. Here's how it works. When there's excess electricity generated, the energy is used to heat a large insulated storage tank of molten salt at very high temperatures. A high melting point means the salt can absorb a lot of energy. It keeps for 6+ hours. Lithium batteries can only manage under 4. When the grid needs power, the plant reconverts heat back into electricity through a turbine. While its material costs are relatively low and its system is pretty scalable, it's still behind hydro and lithium. The hope is that the market will eventually make it feasible. You can do something similar with the piles of sand we mentioned earlier. A couple of Finns decided to use some local piles to solve one of Finland's biggest energy issues: heating. Instead of converting the heat back to electricity, they just use it directly.
The storage capacity is in the order of 1,000 times cheaper than with lithium batteries.
Mako Ilonen co-founded a company that makes sand batteries.
We turn the electricity to heat, but we can make it so cheaply that we can play with the large volumes of energy.
How much sand?
100 tons of sand.
It can store heat at around 500 to 600 degrees Celsius for months. This heat then goes directly to warm municipal buildings. Moreover, it could provide heat to one of the biggest emitters of greenhouse gases, the heavy industry sector. In cold countries, this solution makes a lot of sense. The company currently has one system that's heating Kankanpää, a southwestern town with a population of 13,000. The 100-ton sand battery can technically stay hot for months, but they recharge this one in 2-week cycles to keep it efficient. These are just a couple of solutions. There are dozens of technologies out there right now, each vying for their place in the market. Flow redox batteries, for instance, are another big contender for grid-scale storage. They don't function all that differently from lithium-ion batteries. In the latter, electrons travel between 2 electrodes through a liquid called an electrolyte, creating a current. In a flow battery, this liquid electrolyte is stored externally. The larger the tank, the more storage capacity, which means the flow battery can be scaled really easily. And what needs scale? You guessed it, the grid.
Chemical technologies, gravity-based technologies, mechanical technologies, flow batteries, all that stuff. This is a huge need that we're trying to solve, and I think we're going to need all of it.
Truth is, we're not going to quit the lithium-ion anytime soon. The huge demand for electric cars means that some of the technologies and efficiencies in development there will spill over to the grid. But the fossil fuel industry is built into the economy. It's a huge challenge to adapt entire systems, including infrastructure and policy, to renewable alternatives. Cost is the biggest limiting factor for new technologies. The market decides how far they've come and how far they'll go.
To Africa now. and a laboratory in Senegal where researchers are looking at the potential to recycle natural waste not just to generate energy but to store it too. The aim is to produce scalable batteries from nothing less than a local street food staple.
These button cell batteries may not look very special until you know the raw material used to make them at this lab in Dakar's Sheikh Anta Diop University. Peanut shells.
Transforming this type of biomass into advanced materials is a new field of research. The scientific community has been working on it for 2 or 3 years. And we were the first to initiate this kind of work here in Africa.
Peanut shells are plentiful in Senegal. Peanuts are one of the country's 4 most important exports. More than 60% of the rural population grows the popular and energy-rich legume. But this year, a low harvest of around 1.6 million tons is expected due to poor rainfall. Until now, the shells have simply been thrown away or burned. Pure waste, says Professor Ngom. He regularly buys his raw materials at the Tilène Central Market in Dakar and explains to the trader that he makes batteries from the shells.
I'd never heard of that. It seems every day you wake up and there's more technology, more development. But I'm happy to see it happening and that the peanut shells help.
For more than 2 years, Bala Diop Ngom has been researching the conversion of biomass into energy with a group of 15 students. It's a complicated electrochemical process. First, the shells are ground into a powder and mixed with water.
The whole thing soaks for a period of time like this, though I won't tell you how long, because that's one of the crucial parameters. Then we filter the mixture, and the result is this liquid. Once we add some more ingredients, we can use it to create the positive charge of the battery.
The researchers take advantage of the high carbon content of the shells and extract zinc oxides from them. When the liquid is irradiated with sunlight at high temperatures, the zinc oxide evaporates and is converted into metallic zinc, which in turn can store energy. These are environmentally friendly batteries that have the same potential as conventional lithium-ion batteries, for example, but without the disadvantages. That's because lithium-ion batteries contain, among other things, cobalt, which is often mined by children in dangerous mines in the Congo. In addition, reserves of lithium and cobalt are limited. So the plus points are that the peanut battery is produced without cobalt, easier to dispose of, cheaper to produce. Introducing these environmentally friendly batteries would be of great help to Senegal, since 40% of rural households have no connection to the state power grid. They rely on batteries or alternative energy sources like solar, or simply don't have access to any form of energy. There is a huge gap in energy supply, according to this environmental analyst.
To fill this gap, I think we have to move toward the development of energy sources like biomass. Biomass energy can be an answer today because Senegal is a major producer of peanuts with a huge supply of peanut shells. For areas like Casamance, which has a significant amount of biomass, the development of this energy source will allow us to close a large part of the existing gap.
In preliminary trials, the researchers were able to power remote controls or cell phones with their biobatteries. But their product isn't market-ready yet.
We now need to further optimize all the processes in the lab to get all the parameters fully under control so that the system works properly. And then it will be ready for market.
the research team in Dakar is now sure their batteries work. However, further research and money is needed before they can upscale production so that people in Senegal can actually use peanut power batteries.
Even innovations for a sustainable future are not without their share of compounding consequences, as we've seen today. But accounting for solutions to these problems right from the start is bound to make a huge difference for the better. I'll leave you with that thought and see you again next week. Goodbye and thanks for watching.